Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring something pretty unique.
Okay.
The 48th hexagram of the I Ching.
Yeah.
It's often called Jing, which translates to, you guessed it, the well.
The well.
Now, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the I Ching, it's this ancient Chinese text.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike a lot of fortune-telling systems you might know, the I Ching isn't about giving you like a fixed fortune.
Right.
Instead, it's more about understanding change, the cycles of life, that sort of thing.
I see.
So today we're going to really try to get a good grasp on what the specific hexagram symbolizes, how it's been interpreted over the centuries,
Yeah.
and maybe even see how it might apply to us today.
Okay.
And trust me, there's some pretty intriguing stuff here.
Like what?
We're talking hidden pearls, broken jugs, and even some surprisingly passive advice.
Oh, wow. That sounds really interesting.
I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, me too.
So to kick things off, I'm curious, what do you find most fascinating about this particular hexagram, hexagram 48?
Well, one thing that's always struck me about hexagram 48 is it starts with this really powerful image right there in its structure.
Oh, interesting.
It's built from two trigrams. Can, which represents water, sits above Ug, which is the symbol for wind.
Oh, okay.
And so you get this interplay between the wind, which stirs things up, creates movement, and the water, which seeks to replenish, to find balance.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
And that really kind of sets the stage for a lot of the major themes of the hexagram.
Like
Themes like renewal, resourcefulness, and even the potential for a shift in fortune.
wow, that's a really vivid way to think about it.
Sure.
That tension between movement and stillness.
Right.
It makes me think about those times in life when you're not sure if you should like push forward or wait for things to settle.
Yeah, totally.
But let's move from the structure into the actual content itself.
Okay.
What does the text of the hexagram itself tell us?
Sure. So there are a few key phrases that really stand out to me. One that always kind of grabs my attention is the mention of a pearl hidden in the deep abyss.
That imagery is so powerful. This pearl hidden deep in the abyss. It's almost like a treasure waiting to be discovered, you know?
Right.
So what's the significance of that in the context of this hexagram?
Well, the I Ching is full of these really striking metaphors. And I think this particular one symbolizes the potential for great things to emerge from maybe unexpected or even hidden places.
Mm-hmm.
But it also speaks to the effort that's required to uncover them.
Okay.
This isn't about just passively waiting for good fortune to fall in your lap.
I see.
It's about being willing to dig deep, to explore those uncharted territories, within ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah, it makes me think about all those hidden talents or opportunities we might be overlooking.
Exactly.
Just because we're not looking in the right places, or maybe not putting in the effort to actually uncover them.
Exactly.
And the text goes on, right?
It does.
It highlights this idea of unexpected change with another image.
Yeah.
That of a dry well suddenly producing fresh water.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That's really powerful imagery, that dry well springing to life.
It is.
It really resonates with me.
Yeah.
It speaks to the possibility of renewal, even in places where you might not expect it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it makes me think about those times when things feel stagnant or hopeless, but then a sudden shift happens and everything changes.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of what the hexagram is getting at?
Absolutely. It's this reminder that even in those times of stagnation, that there's always this potential for rejuvenation. But, and this is important, the hexagram also emphasizes the need for what it calls an orderly and structured approach.
Okay.
To actually achieve success and prosperity.
So it's not just about like luck or just waiting for that sudden shift.
Right.
It's about being intentional, about cultivating our inner resources and creating the right conditions for positive change to occur.
Exactly.
So it's not about sitting back and just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
It's about taking action, but doing so in a way that's aligned with these natural cycles of change.
That's it.
What I'm really curious about is how this ancient wisdom actually translates into our modern lives. What does hexagram 48, the well, have to say about things like fortune, relationships, even health?
Well, let's start with fortune. There's this really intriguing line in the text that says, "A well is static. It cannot move."
A well is static. Does that mean this hexagram is advising us to stay put?
It's possible.
To wait for things to come to us instead of actively pursuing them?
It's not necessarily about passivity.
Okay.
But it does seem to be a caution against being overly aggressive or proactive.
Okay.
Sometimes the wisest course of action is to observe, to wait for the right moment to act.
I see.
Instead of trying to force things.
So Hexagram 48 is suggesting that composure and careful consideration might actually lead to better results?
That's how I interpret it, yeah.
Wow, so it's about choosing our battles wisely.
Yeah.
Recognizing that sometimes the best way to move forward is to stand still.
Exactly.
That's kind of a counterintuitive idea in our world, where everything's so fast-paced.
It is.
But it's definitely something worth considering.
Yeah.
What about relationships? How does this well metaphor apply to relationships?
Well, things get a little bit more cryptic when it comes to love.
Yeah.
The hexagram just kind of alludes to separation and reunion, which, that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways depending on the context.
Yeah, this idea of separation and reunion, it almost feels like it speaks to that natural ebb and flow of relationships. There are times when we need to create space for ourselves for growth, and then there are times when we come back together, hopefully stronger and more connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess this line could also point to the challenges and the reconciliations that happen in any close relationship.
Exactly.
And that's what's so interesting about the I Ching as a whole.
I agree.
It invites you to reflect on its meaning in your own life, to connect these ancient metaphors to your personal experiences.
Yeah, it does.
And speaking of personal experience, what about health? Does the well offer any insights when it comes to health?
Well, there's actually a rather sobering warning about the possibility of a serious and prolonged illness being associated with this hexagram.
Oh, okay. That's not exactly what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
But what can we learn from that? Is it just about taking care of our physical well-being?
I think it goes a little deeper than that. Remember, even a well, which is this source of life and sustenance, it still needs maintenance.
Right.
If it's neglected, it can become contaminated or run dry.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it's a metaphor for paying attention to our overall well-being.
So physical, mental, emotional, the whole thing.
The whole picture, yeah.
So it's not just about drawing from the well, but also about ensuring that the source itself is healthy and well-maintained.
Exactly.
That's such a great analogy for thinking about self-care.
It is.
And recognizing that we can't just keep drawing on our inner resources without replenishing them.
Absolutely.
But we haven't even touched on the fact that the hexagram itself is broken down into these individual lines.
Oh, right.
Each with its own unique message.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm curious, are there any lines within Hexagram 48 that you find particularly insightful? Or that maybe tell a good story?
Absolutely. There are several lines that offer some really profound wisdom. But let's focus on a couple that really stand out. Line 1 states, "Changing the town doesn't change the well. No loss, no gain."
Changing the town doesn't change the well. That seems like there's a deeper meaning there.
There is.
What do you think the significance of that line is?
I think it's a really powerful metaphor for the enduring nature of core principles.
Okay.
No matter how much the external world changes, you can think of it like changing the town. Those fundamental truths, which are represented by the well, they remain constant.
That's such a powerful image,
Yeah.
especially in a world that feels like it's constantly in flux.
It is.
It's about staying grounded in who you are, even amidst all that chaos and change.
Absolutely.
There's another line I'm curious about. It's line 3. It states, "Well is clean but not eaten from, causing distress."
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
What's that all about?
Well, that one's really fascinating. It speaks to the idea of potential going unused.
Oh, okay.
It's like having this, well, that's full of fresh, clean water, but nobody is benefiting from it.
Wow.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's like having this incredible resource available to you, but not taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
This line really makes me think about those areas in my own life where I might have all this potential just waiting to be tapped, but I haven't really made the effort to do so.
And that's a really powerful takeaway.
Yeah.
It challenges us to ask ourselves, what are we neglecting? What talents, relationships, or opportunities might we be overlooking?
That's a big question.
It is.
It makes me think about all the things we tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough, or it's too late now, or, I don't have the resources.
Right.
But this hexagram is saying that those are just stories.
Yeah.
That the potential for abundance is always there, waiting to be accessed.
I think so.
And it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier, that tension between wind and water, movement and stillness.
Yes.
Sometimes I wonder if the distress of that unused well comes from too much movement.
Oh, interesting.
Constantly searching and striving.
Right.
And never fully tapping into the resources that are right there in front of us.
I think you're right.
But then how do we even begin to access those resources?
Yeah, good question.
What would the I Ching say about that?
Well, I think Hexagram 48 would encourage us to cultivate both our inner and our outer resources. It's about recognizing that potential for renewal and positive change,
Right?
but also understanding that it takes effort and a willingness to do the inner work.
So it's not just about wishful thinking. It's about actually creating the conditions for those shifts to occur.
Yeah.
For those wells to be replenished.
Exactly.
So how do we actually do that?
Well, that's where that orderly and structured approach comes in.
Right, we talked about that earlier.
We did.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, it's about finding balance, knowing when to push forward or when to be still, when to draw from the well and when to replenish it. I see.
It's also about paying attention to those cycles of change, recognizing that there are times for action and times for reflection.
It's like learning to dance with the rhythm of life,
Yeah,
instead of constantly fighting against it.
I like that.
And maybe that's the key to accessing that hidden pearl, that potential for abundance that this hexagram keeps hinting at.
I think you're onto something.
So it's not just about the destination.
No.
It's about the journey itself.
Right.
And that journey, like the well, requires our attention and care.
Absolutely.
We've covered so much ground today.
We have.
This deep dive into Hexagram 48 has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah, it has.
It's made me think about my own life in a whole new way.
Me too.
But before we wrap things up, I want
Yeah.
to bring it back to our listeners.
Sure.
What would you say is the most important takeaway from this hexagram? What wisdom can they draw from the well today? If I had to distill it down to one key message, it would be this. Cultivate your resources, both internal and external, and recognize that potential is all around you. But accessing that potential, it requires effort, mindfulness, and a willingness to embrace those natural cycles of change.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thanks.
And it brings us back to that central image of the well.
Yeah.
This source of sustenance and renewal, but also something that requires maintenance.
Right.
It's such a powerful reminder that we need to take care of ourselves.
Read you.
Replenish our own wells so that we can keep drawing from them.
Yeah, that's so important.
And that involves being mindful of our actions, right?
It does.
Recognizing that sometimes the wisest course is to be still and observe. Rather than just forcing things,
Absolutely.
it's about finding that balance between movement and stillness,
Mm-hmm.
between drawing from the well and replenishing it. And that's where things get really interesting. Because if the well is a metaphor for our inner resources, the question then becomes, what does that well represent in your life?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It is a profound question, and I think it's one that each listener needs to answer for themselves.
They do.
What are your unique gifts and talents?
Yeah.
What relationships bring you joy and nourishment? What areas of your life need attention and care?
So true.
I'm already starting to reflect on my own life in light of this hexagram.
Me too.
It's such a powerful invitation to take stock of our inner resources.
It is.
And to see where we might need to focus our attention.
Absolutely.
And as you reflect on those questions,
Yeah.
remember the lessons of Hexagram 48.
Right.
Be resourceful, be patient, and be open to those unexpected shifts in fortune.
You got it.
It's almost like this hexagram is giving us this personalized roadmap for navigating life's challenges and opportunities.
It's like that a roadmap.
But like any good roadmap, it doesn't give us all the answers.
Right.
It just points us in the right direction and encourages us to explore, to discover our own paths.
I agree.
And maybe that's one of the most valuable lessons we can take from the I Ching.
What's that?
It's not about finding this one-size-fits-all solution.
Oh, it's not.
It's about understanding those principles of change, the cyclical nature of life, and applying those insights to our own unique circumstances.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So instead of looking for that quick fix or that easy answer,
Right.
we're being invited to engage in this ongoing process of self-discovery and reflection.
That's powerful.
Which, when you think about it, is a pretty radical idea in our world.
It is.
Where everything is instant gratification and quick solutions.
So true.
And maybe that's why these ancient texts continue to resonate with us today.
I think so.
They offer this different perspective, a way of seeing the world that's grounded in wisdom and this deep understanding of human nature.
They do.
I know I've learned so much from our deep dive into Hexagram 48 today.
Yeah, me too.
It's given me a whole new way of thinking about the challenges and opportunities in my own life.
Same here.
And I hope our listeners have found it equally insightful.
I hope so too.
And for anyone who's intrigued by the I Ching and its wisdom, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There's a whole universe of symbolism and metaphor to explore within this ancient system.
There is. It's amazing.
It's truly a journey of self-discovery.
It is.
And even though we've only scratched the surface today, hopefully our discussion has sparked a curiosity in our listeners to learn more.
I hope so.
And you don't have to become like an expert in the Yi Jing to benefit from its insights.
Exactly.
Even just reflecting on these metaphors and their potential applications can offer a fresh perspective on your own life.
You can.
So as we draw from the well of ancient wisdom today, let's leave our listeners with this final thought.
Okay.
What is your well? And what steps can you take today to ensure that it's a source of abundance, clarity, and renewal?
Great question.
Until next time, may your wells be full and your journeys be filled with purpose and meaning.
Like that.
See you next time.
Bye. Yeah, it's almost like we're so busy looking for the next big thing that we miss the opportunities that are already right there in front of us.
Totally. So how do we even start to, access those resources?
Yeah.
What would the I Ching say about that?
Well, I think Hexagram 48 would encourage us to cultivate both our inner and our outer resources. It's about recognizing that potential for renewal and positive change, but also understanding that it takes effort, a willingness to do the inner work.
So it's not just about wishful thinking then?
No, not at all.
It's about creating the conditions for those shifts to actually occur?
Right.
For those wells to be replenished.
Exactly.
So how do we do that, in a practical sense?
Well, that's where remember we talked about it before,
Yeah.
that orderly and structured approach that comes in.
Okay.
It's about finding balance, you know, knowing when to push forward and when to be still, when to draw from the well and when to replenish it. It's also about paying attention to those cycles of change, recognizing that there are times for action and there are times for reflection.
It's like learning to dance with the rhythm of life instead of constantly fighting against it.
Yeah, I like that.
And maybe that's the key to accessing that hidden pearl, that potential for abundance that this hexagram keeps hinting at.
I think you're right.
So it's not just about the destination.
No.
It's about the journey itself.
It is.
And that journey, requires our attention and care.
It does.
We've covered so much today.
I know, it's amazing.
And this deep dive into Hexagram 48 has been so insightful.
It has.
It's really made me think about my own life in a whole new way.
Me too.
But before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I want to bring it back to our listeners for a minute.
Sure.
What would you say is the most important takeaway from this hexagram? What wisdom can they draw from the well today?
If I had to distill it down to one key message, it would be this. Cultivate your resources, both internal and external.
Okay.
And recognize that potential is all around you. But accessing that potential, it requires effort, mindfulness, and a willingness to embrace those natural cycles of change.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It brings us right back to that central image of the well.
Yeah.
This source of sustenance and renewal.
Right.
But also something that requires maintenance.
Absolutely.
And it's such a powerful reminder that we need to take care of ourselves.
We do.
Replenish our own wells so that we can keep drawing from them.
We can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And that involves being mindful of our actions.
Yeah.
Recognizing that sometimes the wisest course of action is to just be still and observe, rather than just forcing things.
Sometimes that's the best way.
It's about finding that balance between movement and stillness.
Exactly.
Between drawing from the well and replenishing it. And that's where things get really interesting. Because if the well is a metaphor for our inner resources, the question then becomes, what does that well represent in your life?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's a profound question.
It is.
And I think it's one that each listener needs to answer for themselves.
I agree.
What are your unique gifts and talents?
Yeah.
What relationships bring you joy and nourishment? What areas of your life need that attention and care?
Those are the important questions.
I'm already starting to reflect on my own life in light of this hexagram.
Yeah, me too.
It's such a powerful invitation to take stock of our inner resources.
It is.
And see where we might need to focus our attention.
Absolutely.
And as you reflect on those questions, remember the lessons of Hexagram 48.
Okay.
Be resourceful. Be patient. And be open to those unexpected shifts in fortune.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's almost like, this hexagram's giving us this personalized roadmap for navigating life's challenges and opportunities.
I like that.
But like any good roadmap, it doesn't give us all the answers, right?
No, it doesn't.
It just kind of points us in the right direction.
Yeah.
Encourages us to go out there and explore and discover our own paths.
I agree.
And maybe that's, one of the most valuable lessons we can take from the Yi Jing.
What's that?
It's not about finding that one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about understanding the principles of change,
Yeah.
that cyclical nature of life, and then applying those insights to our own unique circumstances.
It makes sense.
So instead of always looking for that quick fix or that easy answer,
Right.
we're being invited to engage in this ongoing process of self-discovery and reflection.
That's powerful.
Which, when you think about it,
Yeah.
it's a pretty radical idea in a world that's constantly pushing us towards instant gratification and quick solutions.
It is, isn't it?
And that's maybe why these ancient texts, they continue to resonate with us today.
I think so.
They offer this different perspective, a way of seeing the world that's grounded in wisdom and this deep understanding of human nature.
It's true.
I know I've learned so much from our deep dive today into Hexagram 48.
Me too.
It's really given me this whole new way of thinking about the challenges and the opportunities in my own life.
Yeah, same here.
And I really hope our listeners have found it equally insightful.
I hope so too.
And for anyone out there who's intrigued by the I Ching and its wisdom, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, for sure.
There's a whole universe of symbolism and metaphor to explore within this ancient system.
It's amazing.
It's a journey of self-discovery.
It really is.
And even though we've only just scratched the surface today, hopefully our discussion has sparked a curiosity in our listeners to learn more.
I hope so.
And you don't have to become like, a master of the I Ching or anything
Not at all.
to benefit from its insights. Even just reflecting on some of these metaphors and their potential applications can offer such a fresh perspective on your own life.
It can. It really can.
So as we draw from the well of ancient wisdom today, let's leave our listeners with this final thought.
I'm ready.
What is your well?
Ooh.
And what steps can you take today, right now, to make sure that it's a source of abundance, clarity, and renewal?
Both of the things.
Until next time, may your wells be full and your journeys be filled with purpose and meaning.
Beautifully said.
We'll see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.